Hi, and welcome to the Spooky Isles. My name's David Saunderson, and today we're talking to Clarissa Vazquez, who is the founder of the Colorado Coalition of Paranormal Investigators. How are you, Clarissa?
I'm well, thank you.
It's early there today. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon here in London. I believe it's about 9:30 there in Colorado.
That's correct.
So the reason we've asked you today is we're always interested in hearing different views on the paranormal and what people are doing in other parts of the world. And the main subject I'd like to talk to you today about is an article that you wrote for us last year about should people who are investigating the paranormal tell ghosts they're dead. I think that's a very simple way of putting it, and we'll talk about that idea in a little bit. But first, I just really want to understand, how you came to be founding the coalition, as well as your own development as a paranormal investigator.
Certainly. I had my first paranormal interaction back in 1996, back when I was active duty with the U.S. Armed Forces, and I experienced my first ghost. And I did not understand at all what I had just experienced. It was strange and curiosity invoking, really. Didn't occur to me to be frightened at all. And of course, back then, the internet was still in its infancy. Paranormal investigation TV was not a thing yet. And so I was limited to going to the library and reading copious books on ghosts, books by, Hans Holzer and Ed Warren, and, really trying to make sense of what I had experienced. And from there, I started adopting some of the techniques that were mentioned in some of the books. And I would go to cemeteries, with an analog tape recorder and a Polaroid camera, and eventually, started kind of honing my skills and developing my own theories and techniques that some were working and some weren't. And one thing led to another. Started getting good at what I was doing, and was getting request after request after request for my services, really to satisfy the curiosity of others. And so in 2004, CCPI was born. Started taking on investigators, training them, developing policies, procedures, protocols. And it has just it has blossomed and exploded from there. We're 16 years strong now, and just really quarantine, go out and play.
That's interesting. So you're talking about developing your own ideas, and you mentioned a few of the people you're influenced by. We'll talk about the subject that we're here to talk about today is should you tell a ghost they're dead? Do you think ghosts and spirits have their own, there's some different views of what a ghost is and what a spirit is? Maybe you can tell us what you think, what you consider them to be, and therefore that'll influence the way, you could explain to some, an entity whether they're alive or not.
Me personally, I don't believe there is a disconnection between ghost and spirit. I think they are one and the same. Simply, just like maybe we're all. I do believe that there are different classifications of ghost and spirit. There is the residual, there's the intellectual, there's poltergeist phenomena, etc., etc. And so there are different classifications within those. However, and as you mentioned earlier, the article that I wrote, I do not believe that it is ever acceptable to let a ghost or spirit, regardless of what you call them, or what classification they fall into, it is never permissible, never acceptable to let them know that they are dead. One of the, I would say the top three premises that most paranormal researchers follow is the golden rule theory, and that is, treat who you are communicating with and interacting with as you would want to be treated. So then it falls back on, how would you feel if someone walked into your house and asked you when you died, how you died, said, you're dead, right? You don't know this person. They've walked into your house uninvited and are now telling you are dead. How would you feel? You would be angry. You would not want to communicate with them. You would not want to interact with them. You would probably start working toward getting them out of your house, which could be malicious or dangerous, depending on your personality and your temper, etc. So, those are things that we as paranormal researchers, paranormal investigators, ghost hunter, you want to call us, those are things and take into consideration that it is not our place to share that information, regardless.
Could you
they
see
are. Go ahead.
Could you see a scenario where it was important for you to maybe reveal that information in a more sensitive way? If you wanted them to, I don't know the way that you work, but some wanting them to pass over, or are there any scenarios that you could see where you would actually tell an entity that they were no longer living?
There's only one scenario in which I can see that would be acceptable or beneficial. And we still don't know how and why they remain earthbound. And we still don't know how and why some do and some don't. We still don't know that yet. We know a lot more than we did 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years ago. Certainly. We know a lot more, but we still don't know the specifics. We still don't know the whys behind the whats, etc. And so the only scenario that I can think of where it would be acceptable to reveal that information and potentially assist in crossing someone over would be if we had the super rare event where there was conscious and intellectual real-time interaction, where you are having a sit-down, conversation with a ghost or a spirit, where you are asking questions, they are answering in real time, intellectually, consciously, and understandably. So that would be the only situation where I think it would be permissible to discuss their death.
Have you, I'm assuming that probably has never happened with you. You've not been able to do that kind of conversation.
No, I would love to have that sort of conversation, but
because that's essentially the conversation we're having now.
Yes.
That would be a thing. Have you seen any times where people have done the wrong thing and sort of said to an entity that they're not alive and it's turned out badly as you suggest?
I have been called in when others have tried to, spirit removal or tried to cross them over, and things of that nature. And situations have become much worse for the clients. The clients will call in, a novice or a rookie team. They'll go in and, essentially do a smoke and mirrors show. They got equipment they don't know how to use properly. And they go in and they just stir the pot. They just shake everything up. Things get worse. I get called in and I have to, try to decide what the best course of action for the clients to take following is. Do they need to contact clergy, for a blessing, cleansing, exorcism, what have you? Do they need to try to find a peaceful way to coexist? Do they need to move? So that's when I get called in, is after people who don't really know what they're doing go in and make a mess out of things.
Do you have some advice of how people should go about doing this, though? In the original article, you gave a few steps that people should take when addressing what we'll call entities, because whatever we would like to call them. Mm-hmm. Have you got some advice there?
Be respectful. Use the present tense. Don't use past tense, because again, they may not be aware of what has happened. They could be stuck in 1985, So use the present tense. You know, how are you? You know, what is your favorite color? You know, when is your birthday? Things of that nature. You know, when you're trying to glean information, you know, from the entity, use the present tense. Don't say, you know, what was your favorite color? You know, when was your birthday, etc. Um, so, you know, be polite. You know, courteous. You know, courtesy is key. It's paramount. Even when you're conversing with the living, you know, when you're conversing
Yeah.
with potential clients, uh, you know, use that common courtesy. Treat your clients, treat their their earthbound spirits, and everyone really as you would want to be treated. And again, use the present tense. Don't use past tense.
Yeah, well, that does make sense. That what you're basically saying is that you just treat them like anyone else you would meet in the street, and you
Absolutely.
can't really go wrong there. So it's a funny time. It's a funny time in the world at the moment. We're all kind of in lockdown. What are you doing to keep yourself busy while none of us can go out ghost hunting at the moment? So what are you doing to keep yourself busy?
I am working on my 6 manuscripts. As you know, I already have 6 books about ghosts and the paranormal on the market. I have about 6 more in the works, and so I have been, you know, working tirelessly on my manuscripts and having very in-depth intellectual conversations with my cat.
That's that's a wonderful thing. What's the what? When should we expect your next? Well, you've got 6 in the works. What's the
Mm-hmm.
subject of at least one of them that's going to be coming out that we could whet our appetites about?
One of them is actually a very comprehensive um, book that is going to, hopefully, knock on wood, encompass paranormal phenomena as a whole. Um, there's a pagan metaphysical book out there by a man by the name of Buckland, and he's got, you know, anybody in the pagan community, you know, knows about Buckland's Blue Book, and this, I hope, will be comparable to that, only for paranormal investigators. You know, I will discuss pretty much any topic, technique, theory, you know, pertaining to ghosts and the paranormal. And so it's you know, and I may even include, you know, a little ufology, a little cryptozoology, and some of those as well, because paranormal phenomena, as we know, is not limited to just ghosts.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have to decide, you know, what's enough, when is it enough, what to include, what to cut, and things like that. And I'm hoping to have that out, available for pre-sale by the end of the summer.
That sounds great. Well, we'll make sure we put links to all your other books in the description, so anyone wants to get in contact with you, I'll put your web address in there as well. So
Sure.
thank you for that today. It was really good, and be interested to see what people think about some of the things you said, and we'll maybe comment and you can answer some of the questions people might have in the comments below. So
Certainly.
thanks very much for that. Have a great weekend, and
You
we'll
too.
talk to you soon. Okay. See
All
you,
right.
Clarissa.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.